Okay, welcome, Raven Scott, to the Grounded Guidance podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here. Raven is an ambassador of the fight to gain your sparkle back after narcissistic abuse. She has embraced her solo path and dominates breaking toxic patterns and toxic ancestral patterns. Through grounded and heart-centered teachings, she elevates the spiritual journey and concepts that you are uniquely magnificent. And contrary to your doubts, you are here for a purpose. Her unique approach to addressing the soul's journey through interpreting your human design chart gives you hope and clarity of your energetic themes you are meant to grow from. As an international author, narcissistic abuse recovering coach, podcast host of Empath and Narcissistic and Human Design Soul Interpreter, she is dispelling the narcissistic power one soul at a time. So let's start with what inspires you to be your best self and show up each day?
My kids, only my kids. When I
Yeah.
first discovered after healing from narcissistic abuse, coming out of it, just kind of feeling like crazy. How did that happen? Why did that happen? A few years later, I became pregnant, and I was really scared that I would, have a girl, because I felt like that was an ancestral pattern in my family that always got messed up. And so when I discovered that, I was like, okay. I said God at the time, whatever that is, source, universe, like, I've got some work to do. And it was almost like that was the rolling up my sleeves time. I was like, okay, I'm in the deep end. Let's do this,
Yeah.
And my spiritual journey really launched from there.
I would agree with you. When I became a mom the first time, it was like I was being reborn for the first time, right? And it was like it was like the launching of everything that is real and important and true in my life was becoming a mom. And it was not easy at times, but yeah, what a growth pattern, right?
Yeah. And it was such a weird thing. Like, I just innately knew, like, my soul and my spirit knew more than my mind did, but it all connected in that moment. And then just last year, or maybe the beginning of this year, I had an Akashic record reading, and she had said that you're here, like, forget about all your worries. Like, I was feeling really worried about my family system. It's like, that's not your responsibility. You're here to heal your husband's bloodline through your children. And I was like, well, that totally connected the dots of why that's the most important thing. And that was my big catalyst for spiritual growth and change and discovering human design. It was like this amazing roadmap to their energetic blueprint, mine, like knowing how to parent them consciously, because I was into conscious parenting, pretty much doing everything different than my parents did as best as I could.
Yeah.
And that was just another tool that I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, all of the little, I call them like breadcrumbs or stepping stones. They were all in my path. And then when I had that reading, I was like, and now it all makes sense. It all makes sense.
Do you feel a big weight having that revealed to you?
No, it almost helps me refocus, because I am a bit all over the place with, like, always wanting to have, I have a certain aspect in my Mars where it's never satiated. And so I've got like 3 different projects going on. I'm volunteering at their school. I've got the podcast. I've got a different business. I've got all these things. And it always helps me refocus on, like, I can let everything else go and really focus on what's important. There's still work to do that, but it's a really good reminder. So I don't feel a heavy weight. I actually feel really blessed and privileged getting that.
Does it change how you show up as a mom, or just as a human being, knowing that? I'm super curious about this.
Yeah. And one of the things is I've always been into learning ancestral history, things that, seem to be hidden from me. And like, I love revealing all of that. So that's also, I feel like, part of it is sharing that with them and helping them feel proud about where they came from in their ancestral line. Yeah. So it is fun. I do feel like I show up giving them advice in a different perspective. It's more of a coach versus a like, well, you should do it this way kind of a perspective. And sometimes I feel like it gives them validation, like knowing, like especially knowing their charts and knowing like what kind of love they need, like where is their Venus, and really being
Wow.
able to show up for them. It allows that relationship to have mutual respect, mutual bonds. And, my youngest daughter's always bringing me like Pop-Tarts from cafeteria because she knows that I love
Oh,
them. And it's really sweet, like she knows that. And I admit when I do something wrong, and that helps, I think it's
yeah.
just,
Not parenting from the patriarchy, which I think is really
yeah.
powerful. And then like really dispelling the epigenetics, right? You're really a rule breaker or a pattern disruptor. And
I
that's
mean,
big.
rewiring those
Yeah.
subconscious neurons was a big focus for me when they were babies. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Bravo.
Yeah.
So you're the author of a book called Empath and the Narcissist. You also have a podcast by the same name.
Yes, and
Um,
a second book, Empath's Guide to
oh,
Rising Strong.
oh yes. Oh wow, how exciting.
Yeah.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about your narcissistic journey? Because I know that it really is what fueled a lot of the work with human design.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and well, yeah, let us know.
Yeah. Let's see. Where do I start without going down the rabbit hole? I met my first love was a narcissist. He was very charming. I met him in the church. He was very safe. I thought all was good. I loved his family. I put him on a pedestal, which was not right. That was one of the reasons that it did not go well, and I ignored all the red flags. I remember even yesterday I was thinking about this. Like I was still in high school when we were dating, and I met him, and I was on the softball team, and I had dyed my hair some color. I forget. I don't even remember what it was. I was just experimenting, and I was like, "Do you like it?" And my friends came, like they were around, and he was like, "No, it's ugly." And they were
Mm,
like, "What a jerk. Like, I can't believe he just said that." And in that moment, it didn't bother me. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now I know your honest opinion. Thanks." But it didn't bother me. But that should have
wow.
been a huge red flag because that was
Right.
just the biggest thing was like control over how you look, how you dress. I was very granola girl. So he had triangulated a situation where his mom was like dressed like a supermodel with makeup all the time, and his grandma too. So he triangulated a situation where I asked for a makeover, and I started to do makeup just like them and look like them. It
Wow.
was like the craziest
Yeah,
covert
it infiltrated,
control.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Looking back, I was like, wow, that was masterfully done. I
Yeah.
don't know, like, how I could never do that, right? But that's why I'm not a narcissist.
Yeah.
And so they went on for a while. I was with them for 10 years. And then I tried to leave for 7. And the 8th time, finally, I was like, physical abuse was starting to come into play because he couldn't manipulate my mind anymore. I started to get stronger and like, you know what? No, I think you're wrong. This is not how it is. I just started to wake up
Hmm.
because nothing would ever get fixed. When it was like, well, you need to fix or you need to change and you did this. So as soon as that happened, that first hit, I was like, I'm out. I'm not
Wow.
like out of the relationship. I still wanted to go to therapy, but I was like, I'm done. But I woke up. It was almost like a spiritual awakening at the same time because I went in the bedroom. I saw this really dark mist cloud
Mhm.
in the bedroom, like coming down like fog. And that was kind of scary. So I closed my eyes, and then I was like getting pulled into this dark vortex when I closed my eyes. And that's where my resolve was like, I need to move out, and we can just figure out our relationship from a safe space. Like this house, I thought it was not him. I thought it was the house. Like this house is haunted or something,
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm out. And yeah, that darkness followed me into my apartment. Actually, there was a dark shadow figure that woke me up one night after I'd filed for divorce. After I resolved that, you know what, he's not listening. He's sabotaging everything. He's not calling me to apologize or doing anything. He tried to cheat on me with my sister. I was like, okay, divorce papers
Wow.
will be filed. But after that, there was that dark figure that really scared me. It freaked me out. It was just staring at me. So I just dove into learning all about the paranormal after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it made my body shake and tremor, but I couldn't stop watching that one series, The Dead Files,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
over and over, all the episodes, like hundreds of episodes. Um,
It's
but
fascinating.
it's so fascinating, and
Mm-hmm.
it's actually a really great thing to have in my tool belt.
Right.
Because I know it's like, okay, I'm feeling something, or my daughter sees something, we're saging.
Yeah.
Just we're saging. I don't
Yes.
like take any of that lightly.
I don't
Yeah,
either.
so that was really difficult. Like leaving was almost the most divine thing. That all went easy. There was no resistance, there was no love bombing, there was no nothing. Didn't have to get police involved. I'm really grateful with that. But then the aftermath was a long journey
Mm-hmm.
of healing the PTSD, going to therapy and recognizing, yes, you were emotionally and sexually abused. And I was like, what? And then also, yes, you were codependent. And I was like, what's codependent? I'm not
Right.
codependent. So that whole
Yeah.
journey of like learning that I had a lot of shadow work to do as well, and trying to figure out why that happened. And that's what I wrote in my first book, is that journey, and about all the different, like the patriarchal parenting and religion and control, and all the things that I could think of that could possibly kind of set me up for that. But sometimes you can be perfect. You can have a wonderful family, like I've learned from some of my guests, a wonderful family life, super smart, well educated, and still the
Yeah.
narcissist is so charming. I mean, they put on such a show,
They do.
and you just don't know until something bad happens. And then they kind of get you stuck, either through
Mm-hmm.
trauma bond, or you're stuck like financially or with a child or something.
Yeah. And it
So,
it really is, there's like fingerlings to the abuse. It's just weaves its way. I think it's really interesting the
it's
part
a
you
deal.
talk about the mom and the grandma, and how it was clearly in the family as well, right?
Mhm.
It was learned behavior.
It was learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his father was not respectful. His parents had divorced. His father was not respectful at all to his mother. There was history of alcoholism in that family. So there's so much where it's a personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
You have a
Yeah.
little bit of some, innate personality traits that either your parent needs to condition out of you, or you kind of are taught, and then you just grow into like, well, yep, we're
Right.
just gonna magnify it on the dark path, versus being able to like take responsibility, not blame other people, not be so egotistical. We all do this as kids and teenagers,
Yeah.
but are we being enabled to still be that? Because there's so much guilt and shame around, let's say, their divorce,
Right.
and that gets enabled, or you're just like this perfect genius child. Like he was just this perfect child that could
Mm.
do nothing wrong, and he did not respect his mother at all, so therefore he's not going to respect any woman. He didn't respect me. Yeah, it's just so many of the relational things are so clear when you're out of it and you've
Right. They sure are.
psychoanalyzed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you're in it,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to be loved and accepted, and I always was the odd, awkward girl at school.
Mm-hmm.
I always fit in at church because I was a very good, like I was always a leader. So I was a leader,
Mm-hmm.
I was very spiritual. But as a teenager, like that's not cool. Like
Right.
I want to be a responsible leader. Like I'm an ancient soul. So it was really awkward. Teenage years were really awkward for me. And so I thought that no one would really love me. So I accepted love in this form. I didn't have any standards like, well, no, you're not going to treat me like that. I'm going to find someone else who could treat me better. And I had so many other really nice guys that were vying for my attention.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something about, again, maybe this is my Mars not being satiated. There was something about the status of his family, the vanity of it. Like
Mm.
I felt like I had arrived when I was part of
Wow.
his family. And I felt like I could like show off and one up to all my classmates at school and at church. But little did I know it was like the most toxic family in the
Yeah.
church. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
that's in a nutshell.
Wow. Yeah. So that sounds like it really like launched you on your spiritual path.
I
Um,
did.
Yeah. Launched you into many different modalities of healing. And the you really had to be awake to see that there was something not right about this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to step back and say, there's something, I deserve more.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a
you know
zombie for a while. Pretty much my whole
mm-hmm.
20s was
Mm-hmm.
wasted on being a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't take that back. But I can also relate to everyone who feels like they can't leave. Like, I tried to leave 7 times, and that's actually the average number of someone trying to leave either domestic violence or narcissistic abuse. Yeah.
Wow. So what does it mean to heal to you?
Oh, I think seeing things from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think not playing the victim card, even though
Yeah.
you are a victim, like legitimately you are. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, healing is like transforming from that caterpillar, transforming from the state of like, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do anything. Like, this is like, it is what it is, but in a negative way. Like, this is my life. Into this beautiful butterfly who can actually say, you know what? I have the power within me to break free from this, to rise above. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
favorite moments, I don't know, like, I'm not a big Marvel movie fan, but I know that
Mm-hmm.
this happens in that, maybe others, where there's some type of superpower, right? And like there's a big, or maybe it's the Matrix, right? Where he's getting toppled by all
Mm-hmm.
those bodies. And that is the darkness, that's the lies, that's the manipulation, the gaslighting of the narcissist.
Right.
Um, and anything, it doesn't even have to be narcissist. It could be our society, our culture, like all the lies that you've been fed, all of your negative thoughts.
Yeah.
When you can bust those away and just like stand back up and all those bodies fly off into the air and like your light and your light is shining bright,
Mm-hmm.
like that to me is healing. And it doesn't have to be such an explosion, because my healing journey has been occurring these last 12 years being
Yeah.
gone. It's like an onion.
It
At the
is.
same time, it is also like blowing all of that off, because you've
Yeah.
got to peel those layers away. But
Yeah.
you also have to be strong enough to be like, no more. It's like a
Yeah.
combo.
The Matrix is such a good correlation, right, to
Yeah.
the healing journey, right? And there's so many underlying themes in that movie. Yeah. But you're
Yeah.
right. It is like an onion. It's never done. There's
Mm.
always new layers. There's always new things to learn, right?
Yeah. Always new things.
So let's turn the corner and talk about human design.
Mm.
So human design is kind of a blend of esoteric wisdom and spiritual and scientific principles blend together with that gives you this beautiful kind of self-guidance system that aligns with different pieces of your chart. I mean, there's a lot of pieces of it, but I'd love to know from you
Mhm.
how would you describe human design, and then we'll get into talking about it.
Yeah. Human design is like your soul's roadmap. Like we're all
Mm-hmm.
like, we awaken and we're everyone has that like spiritual awakening. And it's like, okay, now I know I'm a soul. I know I have a purpose here. Now what is it? Not to say that your human design chart gives you like, here it is, do exactly this formula. It is a
Yeah.
formula, but it's not like you have to fill in X and Y to fill out the equation in algebra. And that's part of the journey, is just experiencing and figuring that out. But it is a roadmap, and it does give you like, this is how you flow in order to stop feeling frustrated or acting in your ego. It is a combination of the ancient divination. So you've got astrology, the I Ching, you have the Kabbalah, you have the chakra system. All of those systems are combined into one chart on the body graph. I said astrology, right? I think I
You
said
did,
at the
yeah.
beginning.
Uh-huh.
Okay. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many. And then you have the science of neutrinos. So this is kind of like, I think so. I think this is the only, or one of the only, systems that combine science. So the science of neutrinos essentially explains astrology. Like the nuclear particles from the planets out in the solar system send down neutrinos, and they imprint into your body at the time of birth and also in the womb 88 days approximately before you're born. So you have like this subconscious map on your chart and your conscious map, which is the birth date, which is like your astrology chart.
Okay, so I want to pause for a second. What happens in the womb at 88 days prior to birth? What's happening development-wise in the body? Do we know?
That would have to Google. I don't remember.
I'm
What
really
size were
curious
we?
about
What
that.
fruit size were we at 88 before? Let's see. Okay, so
See, that
9 months. We've got 8. It's at 30, 60. That's 2.5 months. So that's just the beginning of the final trimester.
Okay, so right before. Okay, let me think on that. I'm curious about that.
Yeah,
Seems
and I don't
very
know
exact.
why. I know
88,
it's
you know?
88. Well, it's 88 degrees on the mandala. That's why it's approximately 88, 89-ish.
Well, and 8, right? The infinite number 8, right? And then a double
Yeah.
8, right?
Yeah, I don't know
There's some
why.
significance to that.
I have not delved into this rabbit hole yet. This is a good rabbit hole. So the fetal development is in the 3rd trimester. Your baby will open his eyes or his or her eyes. So gain more weight and prepare for delivery. So essentially all of like the physiology
Growing.
is done. And
It is,
now
yeah.
they're opening their eyes. They're getting ready to be out in the world. And yeah, the
Fascinating.
subconscious, maybe that would be cool to know, like, how many,
The
is there
seed of the
more
soul,
neural
maybe?
pathways being
Yeah.
developed in the 3rd trimester? Because it is, this is tech in human design. It's related to your subconscious, your foundation of your psyche.
I'm curious too, like when the fontanelles, the soft spot on your head, that's one of the last things to close. And they say that that's also where.
Well, the head chakra, the crown chakra,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
source, inspiration.
Sorry, we took a left turn there, didn't we?
I haven't seen your chart yet, but I'm going to guess that your profile has a 1 in it somewhere.
Well, should we? I don't know. I mean, you are the expert here. I'm curious though. Do you want to talk in generic terms about human design, or do you want to look at the chart and talk about it as we go?
I think it would be good to do a mix, so we can talk about a generic concept and then use an example from your chart to kind of solidify it, right?
Yeah.
In our heads.
Sure, we can do that. So I'm going to pull up my chart here, and then let Raven talk about all the things.
All the things. Human design is so great to understand your purpose in life. I'll just talk while you pull it up.
Yes,
Human
thank
design
you.
is great while you, understanding who your authentic soul self is. I know that's a really big thing once we're awakened, especially us empaths, highly sensitives. You're like, why did this happen to me? And there has to be a lesson in the muck. And there is a lesson in the muck. And there is an ultimate purpose. We have loads of different life themes. You know how we talk about like life being the school of life, like we're going through life learning lessons. So each of these, there's a whole bunch of different places we can look at that talk to you about like how to learn and best become wise through the school of life. There are some areas where you really struggle with in life, and it shows us on the chart, and then we can really advise you to lean into the growth there. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but your greatest lesson is to fill in the blank, depending on what that is. And your chart is black and white here, so I'm going to
Is it going to be hard to see?
and say, yeah, so your throat is white, correct? Your square.
Yes, it is.
Your identity center is white, is that correct?
Yes.
Can I make this? No, hold on.
I'm going to pull up the colored version, the throat.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, so it looks like the
Yes, it
will,
is.
sacral, and your solar plexus. The only ones that are really light are the top, and those are defined because they're kind of gray. Okay, 4, 6. Oh, but your node has 1. Okay, that makes sense. I'll explain that to you a little bit later. But I was mentioning that she must have a 1 in her profile because she was like, all of a sudden, she's like, wait a second, let's go down this rabbit hole and investigate what is happening at 88 days. And what that, I was like, oh, ping, ping. Like the investigator asks all those questions that you have to Google. So I was like, But since you don't have it in your main profile, that's at the very bottom of this chart here. Profile, it says 4, 6, opportunist, and role model. I found your one over here and your north node, which is also a big energy in our lives. It's our north node, and we'll cover that. That relates to that life purpose. So you're always seeking that energy of like what your soul's leaning into is investigating. And as a Virgo, right, it's in Virgo, so it's investigating, creating ideas, concepts, organizing, analyzing, and probably wanting to figure out how to control that information to best use in life's, life's school of life and life in general.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that is one area that you can look at. Immediately just go to your north node, which is the horseshoe or the little symbol that looks like a headphone, to take a look at your soul's purpose. It's not so much a purpose. I feel like there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle of our soul's purpose. So north node is one because it's what your soul is seeking towards, it's leading into. Like you just can't help it, you can't resist it. And your north node return usually occurs around the age of 30, if I recall.
Yeah, 28, I think. Oh, no, that's Saturn.
That's the Saturn return.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was pausing. But it's like really close around there. Oh, here we go. What age is the nodal return? 18 and 19, your return. So that means so then it's 36, right? So it's every 18 years. So you've got 18, 36, etc. The pattern goes on. That's where I felt it the strongest. So it's my mid-30s. And so it kind of pulls you into your purpose. There's a clue about also what house is your north node in your astrology chart that helps you with that clue about your soul's purpose. Your incarnation cross is also your soul's purpose. And
which
that is not on this chart, but what is?
Oh, I do have it here.
Yeah. So you can
right
find
angle cross of service.
Of service, yeah. So you can find it here in gate 17 and cross down to 52, 58, cross down to 18. So this is symbol at the top is the sun sign and then the earth sign. So it takes your conscious and your subconscious sun and earth signs and it forms into that. So yours is the gate of service. Yeah. And as a projector, your type, that's another place where you can find your purpose because this determines your energy type. This is like how you use your energy. So the projector's motto is work smarter, not harder. And you are to be a wise counsel. You are to not be busy doing as much. You can do more than the generator because you're amplifying our energy. But you do need to do it in short spurts and take rests and naps and just allow the energy that you've been amplifying all day to deplete by spending alone time at night before you go to bed. And ideally sleeping in your own aura and not anyone else's as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that gives you like an overarching theme of like, I'm a projector. I am here to guide whatever that is. So you're either a coach, you're a guide, you're, Barack Obama, our president, he's a projector. Now he's an amazing producer. Like he's still creating content. He's you can still be a creator, but you do it in such a way where you are bringing wisdom. Like you're bringing new perspectives and wisdom to the world, not just like copying and creating the same as everyone else.
That resonates. Yeah.
Good.
So let's, we were going to talk about like kind of diving into the different types. So, or sorry, not just the different types, kind of like a general overview of these different areas on the human design chart.
Yeah.
So what are there, 4 or 5 types in human design?
There's the generator, manifesting generator, projector, the manifester, and the reflector. That's 5. So you have, go ahead. What was your question?
No, go ahead.
You have the 2 types that have so each shape on the body graph is related to a chakra. So the sacral is the sacral chakra. The sacral center, this square shape, second from the bottom, is related to the life force. The energy center, it's like the battery for the human. Your is related to the reproductive system, sexuality. And so the generators and the manifesting generators, they both will always have this colored in and defined. So it's a consistent energy within them. If you are a generator and, I don't know, let's say you are struggling, you're having a spiritual awakening and you don't really know your purpose, so you're kind of not doing much because you're like, I don't know what to do, what's happening. And also maybe you feel kind of in a funk or you're a little bit depressed and you're not going to be exercising a lot, then you're probably going to have restless nights as well. The key to the generator is to exhaust your energy, to have a really great night's sleep, wake up the next day. It's almost like, like charging your phone and then like waking up and like you're on full battery again and you're on full battery and you have to use your battery till it runs out. I feel like that was like an old myth of the phones now, but you know how you had to like deplete your phone and then charge it? Like you can just charge it anytime you wanted. So that's kind of the generators, like deplete the battery and then then you're fully charged the next day. So that's the generator manifesting generator. The other thing is I've heard some generators, comment on some of my videos on YouTube, like I'm a exhausted generator. Like they don't have that energy. Like there's this, if you are in flow, then you do have a lot of energy and you aren't exhausted. Like at the end of the day, you're exhausted, which is good. But if you are exhausted, that might also mean you're not doing what you love. Generators, manifesting generators, you are here to do, yes, but not to do just to do. Like you are here to bring your beautiful gifts and offerings to the world, building something, creating something. And if it doesn't light you up, then you don't want to do it. It is depressing. It's exhausting. I remember when I was working in sales as a designer and I didn't want to do it anymore. It was exhausting. I hated the whole sales thing. I hated like how they were like pushing so much. Like that just didn't feel right in my soul. Yeah. And I wanted to quit. My ex was like, no, you are providing the money, so you can't quit. Like, you're a sure bet. I was like, okay, I guess I won't quit. Because I understood that, of course, it would take a sacrifice to find a new job or figure out a new career. So when I left him, that was the first thing I did. It was like, okay, I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing this soul-sucking, joyless job. So that's key with the energy with the generator or manifesting generator. Is to find
if you're exhausted in anything, right?
Yeah.
It seems as if there's some self-reflection that should maybe be happening. But I know with the manifesting or the generators, just the title or the name is that they're kind of powerhouses. They are movers and they're shakers and they churn out a lot of work, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
that
know.
the
I do
presumption
that
is
a
that
lot.
I have to be doing that or that is me and I'm exhausted doing that. Perhaps there's an alignment that's not there.
You specifically, as Karen, you feel like you should be doing that, right?
No, I'm
Just in
talking about
general.
just in general. Yeah, in general.
Yeah. And if you enjoy it, then you're gonna do it, right? It's gonna feel good. Like exercising and going to the gym is part of almost like your body's hygiene routine that feels good.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you feel like, ugh, they feel kind of off. That's the
Yeah.
generator type. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
And 33 and 37. So that's 70% of the population are either a generator or manifesting generator.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That's why most of you projectors, manifestors, and reflectors feel so conditioned to be busy, busy, busy and do. Otherwise, you're lazy and you're useless, which is like such a horrible, toxic lie and myth.
It is.
You
Yeah.
you can do a lot, and sometimes maybe as a child you overdid because your sacral is white, and anything that's white amplifies, magnifies, um, expands. So you probably overdid.
Yeah,
You
I would
just to
agree.
kind of prove your usefulness to that
Yeah.
toxic conditioning.
Yeah.
And then you got exhausted, you got burned out.
Yes. I want to rest into that for a second because
Mhm.
I think what I've learned about the projector type that I think is important to recognize is, and something I've learned a lot as an adult that's helped me really navigate my journey really well, is resting into the energy that's happening for me as a projector
Mm.
and somebody that carries the wisdom, so to say, right? It's important that I am feeling into the energy of a day, a week, a month, a year, and I'm allowing my body to rest when it needs to rest. A lot of people around me don't understand that. How do you have
Mhm.
time to rest? What do you mean rest? Right?
Our society's
That is,
not built for rest.
it's not, right? We're a doing society, right? We are
Yeah.
not a being society. But that is how, having you reflect back these principles of human design, that is how I have become better and shown up better for myself and for my family and for the people that I care about. Is knowing what true rest is for me, because I do have those short bursts of creativity that are really powerful, really uh, loud and eccentric, and there's just like really thoughtful things that come out of that time, but it's
Mhm.
not churn and burn.
Yeah.
I've never been like that, and I did. My body burned out as a kid. I had a
Mhm.
thyroid condition as a kid because I was just completely
Yes.
going too much, right?
Yes.
So it's been important. It's been an important distinction, but watching that reflected back in my human design chart is really fascinating.
And there's so much wisdom in
Mhm.
the white open centers.
Mm.
And I love how you just said that's been kind of that's I think that's also part of our purpose is to learn what is our ultimate life lesson and our growth. And
Mm.
that since you have no gates also defined, it's completely open, this sacral center for you specifically. Mine is the root. So some of us do, some of us don't have something completely open. Depends. But that is, yeah, resting. Leaning into the rest will actually allow your strategy to magically
Mm.
bring what needs to come to you in order for you to provide properly for your family, to have that creative burst. Because there's this thing called the strategy, which is this next part we can talk about.
Sure.
For the projector, it's wait for the invitation. So like you said, like you leaning into resting is
Mhm.
exactly what your soul is designed to do. And your aura, we all have different, the types have different shapes of aura. And as
Mhm.
a projector, your aura is probing. Your aura literally is like a hand that's like reaching out and pulling people into you. So you
Mhm.
literally can wait, rest, and then the invitations fall in your lap.
Yeah, that I would say in my own life, there's been a push pull with that, right? The need to know, the need to have things figured out, then the control aspect, right? Wanting to, not so much, I would say, in the last maybe 15 years, but before that, having to have all the ducks in a row, everything lined up. And there's a real dissonance when you need to learn to rest into and surrender to what is actually happening. And my body has
Mhm.
become more in alignment. I would say my physical body is more in alignment the latter way than the former. I'm
Yeah.
curious. I'm curious about something. You said something about the gates. I don't understand that term. So if you
Hmm.
could explain that, that would be
Thank
great. But
you.
I saw something. You said something about how your root chakra gate is wide open. So, and I remember you saying in a conversation with me previously that you have trouble grounding. Is that why that you don't have the roots there? Is that
That's
is that
my
why?
biggest lesson in life is to slow
Mm,
down and to ground.
Mm.
That's why yoga for me is incredibly essential to do every day. Otherwise, I'm literally like, um, I can't think of the one of the Hamilton. I'm literally like Alexander Hamilton. I'm just like, I got to do this. I got to write this blog. I got to create this podcast. I got to write more in the book, and
Just
I got to write
brings you
another book.
here into the
And
present.
I'm just
Yeah.
like my adrenals get so stressed out that I like can't even think straight. I can't even function. So
Mhm.
taking the walks out, going to my spirit tree and doing yoga every
Mhm.
day is incredibly important for me. Like learning how to ground my nervous system is
Yeah.
my biggest lesson in life. And my root center looks like your sacral center. And the gates are the
Mm.
numbers in each
Okay.
center. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that just means that nothing, no planet was in a gate either 88 days or the day of your birth. And
Mhm.
it's when there's something open, that is a place where we, like I said, amplify or we bring in something. Like it's not something that we lack. It's just an area of growth that we don't have something consistent within us that we just need to learn. And we can learn through others because we can amplify either a transiting gate or like if we're in the aura of someone else who has,
Mhm.
that gate or that center defined, that's a really great place to you kind of like take
Harmonize
in
the
their
energy.
energy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
amplify their
Yeah.
energy for a bit. You get to experience how it feels to have a defined sacral, let's say. But it's not consistently yours. Like when you get into your own aura all by yourself, you're like, that's you don't feel that anymore. Therefore, it's an inconsistent energy feeling
So I'm
versus
curious about, there are people, I work really hard at protecting, my space, holding space for others, but then my energetic space,
Mhm.
because of so much of what I amplify. But there are people that are just like a drain to me. Just being in their presence is a drain to me. I'm curious, what does that look? What would somebody's chart that is, lives with their maybe aura really wide open, what would their chart look like in relation to this? Like, where is that draining to me by looking at my chart? I mean,
Mm.
obviously you don't know who they are, but you could probably tell within my human design chart what drains me.
Yeah, again, I look at your open centers because the open is the sponge. The open is what's amplifying. And if we don't do our spiritual hygiene and guard that up, either with setting an intention, with, sometimes I'll just say shield up and I'll just swipe my meridian 3 times. That way I
Yeah.
know, like, and I set an intention to guard. Let's say I'm going in to buy a car. I don't know. I'm just thinking of something super
Yeah.
like obvious.
Really. Yes.
Because the will center, I look at, there's a couple centers. I'll say my example and I'll go through the centers. But
Sure.
the
Yeah.
example is the will center is white for you and for me. I have it also. This tiny triangle to the
This one.
right of the diamond in the center of your chart.
Okay.
It's just off to the side. That's the will center. It's connected to the heart chakra. It is the area where people experience their agendas, their
Mm.
drive to do something, to get something. Like the drive, the passion comes from the heart.
Yeah.
And if it's toxic, if it's not grounded in love and it's very self-centered, then someone with a defined will center or I mean it could be open and have more gates circled, but typically what I've experienced so far in my research is that it's a defined colored in will center
Hmm.
selling the really easily because us when we're open we're super easy sell open white will center. They're like, you want this car? I'm like, sure, yeah, I love this car. Like there's no poker face for us open will centers.
Right. Right.
Wow, you're so
I'm
amazing.
curious
I
now.
can't believe you know all that. Like, I really want this car.
I'd be interested to look at what my husband looks like in that will center. I bet he's just all solid, solid color. I mean, he is so good at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably. And
that is.
we are attracted to our opposites in general. And then we see our opposites in the chart. It's like if you're lacking that and that's really a
Yeah.
pain point for you, you
Right.
you look up to that. So you are attracted to that. So therefore, you find a partner who kind of quote unquote completes you. But we all need to
That
grow in
makes
that
sense.
area ourselves. Yeah.
So I'm curious, the bottom would be the root, then the sacral. What are the two on the flank sides, the two triangles that flank?
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
are those centers?
Let
Yeah.
me share with you those centers after. Remember
Oh, sure.
I wanted to go over what I see in your chart with people drain you. The other
Oh, yes.
one is the open sacral. That can be really draining just because that's energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're amplifying the energy, it's not something that you're used to. It's kind of like going to a rave party when you
Yeah.
normally just sit at home and watch TV, right? Like it's kind of like overstimulation, and now I'm
That
exhausted
is
that I've
very
just
true. Yes.
left
Mhm.
them. So you've got the open sacral, um, the open will center. The open identity can also be draining because you are amplifying how people feel about themselves. That's related to the ego, the identity.
Yes. Is that in the
You
throat? Is that
Sorry, the
the
diamond in the center. The diamond is right below the throat, which is the box, the
Oh,
square.
I thought that was the heart. That's not the heart?
It is related to the heart chakra as well, but it's called the identity center.
Identity. Okay, thank you.
And the heart center, I know sometimes there's interchangeable. The heart center is the will center over here, the little triangle,
I get it.
right
Okay.
below the diamond, which is the identity or
Yes.
slash people call it ego, identity or ego.
Okay.
So that can be draining too if you're around somebody who contains a lot of anxiety or
Mhm.
toxic beliefs about themselves. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like any negative energy is draining, so it's always going to be
It
negative
is.
energy. Um, the flanking triangles, I'll touch on that now, is the one on the right pointing towards, so they're both pointing toward the sacral. The one on the right is the solar plexus. That's regarding emotions. That's also very draining because, again, if you're around someone who is angry, frustrated, um, whatever, and you don't have it guarded, they may walk in the room and all of a sudden you just are raging. Whether you're working on something and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like super frustrated with it because they
Wow.
brought their anger into the room. Whoever has the strongest solar plexus defined and the strongest emotion, that's who's setting the tone for the emotions in
Wow.
the room. So when
So
you have that
when
open,
somebody comes into a room and you just feel it, right? I don't
yeah,
even have to say anything, right?
yeah, yeah, you're just like, oh, they're in a bad mood. But when you have it
Okay.
open, you're just like, you you absorb that like a sponge, and then you're like,
Wow.
now I'm in a bad mood. And if you
Wow.
don't know your chart and you're completely unconscious to all this just happens, and
It does.
you're not aware of it, and you don't know what's happening. And then it's really draining because then you all of
It
a sudden now
is.
you're kicked into your negative anger, frustration, energy when you're just amplifying that person's
I have a lot of
emotions.
open on my chart, don't I?
You do. You have a lot of areas for wisdom. That's for sure.
So I'm curious about the dark colors. So
Yeah,
on
let's
the
go over
lower
those.
part, and then the dark circles within the gates, I guess is what you were calling them.
Yeah, okay.
Does that
So
amplify that energy?
no, that means it's consistent. So if you have a
Consistent.
number, which is a gate,
Hmm.
then it's consistent. That
Okay.
that planet, when you were born,
Hmm.
um, was in that particular gate on the human design mandala. And each
Okay.
number is a gate, and each gate is an energy that's related to the I Ching. There's 64 numbers, meaning there's 64 gates, which there's also consequently 64 variations of the I Ching. And the I Ching is like a description of an energy for that in the in ancient Chinese
Yeah.
astrology.
Hmm.
So sometimes it means like lightning over water, air over mountain, And it's kind of like super vague, but it's more related to the forces of nature. And then we can kind of translate that into the energy of the, the theme of the energy there.
So do you have 1 to 64 on every human design chart?
Correct.
Will you
And they're
have
in the same
every
exact
number?
spot.
Oh, in the same exact spot. That doesn't move.
That doesn't move. What
Oh, okay.
changes is which numbers are circled,
Okay.
which is
Yeah, that makes
related
sense.
to the columns on the left and right, the where that planet was on the mandala, and which gate it was in on the date of your birth and 88 days before you were born.
Okay. So what looks like little pathways that some are longer than the dark pathways.
Yeah, those are channels.
The
So
channels.
yeah, so that's another energy theme. Like all of this is just like energy themes. So a
Okay.
gate is an energy theme. And if it
Mhm.
connects up to another center and the whole line is colored in like a channel, so you have your
Mhm.
spleen on the bottom left center, which we'll talk about, and the root center on the bottom, those are both defined. And you also have that gate 18 to 58 defined, making that whole channel colored in. So that's a consistent energy within you and your personality. It's something strong, it's something
Oh,
of a theme, and it's consistent within you. Like
okay.
a character trait or a character quality.
Okay. And
And or sometimes an area for growth too, depending on if it's kind of stuck in its shadow or if it,
uh-huh.
if you're learning through your lesson or you're in the wisdom spot.
So that on a colored chart, those two between 58 and 18 show black and red. Do
Yeah.
those colors change depending on
Depending on where the planet is on the chart. So
yeah.
the black is the conscious, the day you were born. So we go over here. Your Earth is in gate 18 up at the top right.
Mhm.
So that's why it's colored black. So all the conscious is black, and the red is the subconscious. So your gate 58 is over here. Your sun is in gate 58.
Okay.
And like you see these little candy cane ones, that means that 57 is both on conscious and unconscious. So those are going to be like the outer planets and the nodal aspect. So 57 is your Pluto's, both of them is in 57 because Pluto moves very slowly.
So we were going to talk about the spleen,
Yeah, let's
right?
talk about the
Represent on
defined
the left side,
centers. Uh-huh.
the left
Yeah.
triangle.
Left triangle on the bottom left is the spleen. This is defined for you, and you have a lot of other open ones. So therefore, this is your inner authority. But the spleen is related to your immune system, your intuition, and is related to like safety, the fight or flight kind of modes, knowing how to be safe, knowing when to be safe, if a certain situation is safe. You have this consistently within you. So you're
Hmm.
very, you're already innately wise about safety, like you have a strong immune system or a consistent immune system. And people will magnetize or possibly become codependent on you if they have an open spleen center because you feel very cozy and safe
Safe to
to
them.
them. Consistent.
Mhm.
Yes. So, oh, the only thing I was going to say was because this is your inner authority,
Yeah.
if you have a spleen defined, it doesn't always mean it's your inner authority, but since you have
Oh.
the others open, this is your specific inner authority. Um, it's like an instant, like knowing. The spleen is
Hmm.
a knowing circuit. It's not like a thinking circuit. It's not a processing. So you really want to listen into your intuition and like whatever like body hit or like intuitive knowing, you get
Mhm.
it instantly and then it
Yeah.
goes away. So if you start to think about it and overanalyze it, like you've
Yes.
totally missed it and it's gone and you're like, I don't know what to do now, you know? So you want to make sure you grab onto that and you just go, yep, my first gut response was exactly what was correct.
Yeah, that has been one of my life's journeys is honoring that and listening to that for sure. I'm
Yeah.
curious what somebody with an open spleen Because that wouldn't, an open spleen with a different authority level.
So, for instance, an open spleen, and let's say they have a defined solar plexus, which I see a lot. Defined solar plexus, which is that right triangle, is the
Okay.
emotions. So, if you have an open spleen, you amplify the other thing that the spleen governs is the fears. So, we all have fears. That's how we survive. Safe
Mm-hmm.
fears. Sometimes we have just unsafe fears, just random, like, why are we afraid of that? I don't know, because it's part of us. And so we have consistency. You have consistent access to your fears, so it's almost like you can master it and push through it. Whereas if someone has it open, they may feel a fear, amplify a fear, or they're just always kind of like, well, what if this and what if that and what if that? Like they just kind of like, and things paralyze them. Like, what if I'm not good enough? What if I don't know enough? What if we get in a car crash? What if we do this? Right? It's like all the what ifs, and it paralyzes them from moving forward. Um, and that's a really big area for growth, as to find safety within yourself. Realize that life can't be lived in the what ifs and sitting. You have to brave through and make wise choices according to your inner authority and push through the fears that aren't going to kill you in order to gain that reward on the other side.
Do you see a lot of that? I think that's so interesting that the splenic authority,
Mm-hmm.
somebody with an open spleen, right? Learning how to really trust that gut instinct, right? Learning to really listen to what your intuition is telling you, and
Yeah, well, this wouldn't be their authority if it was open, though.
no, not, oh, you're right. Okay.
Right?
Okay, so
For
somebody
you,
that's,
it's your
yeah,
authority. You got it. If they're paralyzed, so like I said, this example would be their
basically open.
solar plexus is defined, so their inner authority is the emotional inner authority.
Okay,
That
that
means
makes
that
sense.
they're going to have a fear, and then they're going to have to feel everything about that decision or that process. Those who have this defined, the solar plexus on the right triangle defined, have a consistent emotional cycle. And
Okay.
so they have the opportunity to feel excited about something when they're high, neutral about something, super scared, depressed, anxious about it in the lows, and then neutral again. And if they can harness feeling through everything,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll come to the right decision at the end of that emotional process.
Well,
Mhm.
so is there anything else you wanted to say about the bottom half before we move to the top?
Yeah, I would say the root, right? You asked about what
Oh, we
happens if
haven't
the
talked about the
root is
root. Yeah.
defined. Yeah, so again, the root is the adrenal glands. It is when to get something done. Um, if you have it defined, this is another what they call a motor center. So it's constantly like has a when to do something, kind of a push. Like, okay, let's get it done. Okay, let's rest. Let's not do anything. Okay, let's get it done. Let's rest, not do anything. So it's kind of a consistent cycle. So it's really there's there's not a lot of rush with those who have it defined. It's like, oh, I'll get it done tomorrow. No worries. And that could happen
Hmm.
multiple times, and that's fine. Like, they're not stressed about it. They know it's going to get done when it gets done. It's consistently there.
Are these people generally pretty grounded?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty grounded. They take their time and they contemplate before responding to things.
Hmm.
They take their time in doing something, fulfilling a request. Like, there's just no urgency, which can be good and bad depending on what
Yeah.
who they're interacting with. But there's
Mm-hmm.
just there's more of a grounded sense, of like, it's okay, everything's fine. Similar to the spleen, where it's just kind of like they're pretty chill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move up to the head. Do you need to know
Mhm.
those colors?
No, it should be. Usually, it's yellow and green.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yellow on the top, green on the bottom. Yep.
Yeah. So the top is the head connected to the crown chakra. And so this center governs inspiration, ideas, brainstorming, dreams, So if you
Mm.
have this at the top defined, you have a consistent access to inspiration, ideas. Thoughts are always flowing in. They're not always for you, but they're always consistently there. When you
Is
have it
defined mean that there's a color
colored
in there?
in,
Is there always yellow and green in those top color in the top triangles?
yeah, and the color, some charts have customized now. You can do different colors. The
Okay.
color doesn't matter. As long
Okay.
as it is colored in, that means it's defined. Or
Okay.
white, it's undefined. So if the head is white, then it's an amplification center for amplifying ideas, receiving ideas and inspirations, and maybe even dreams, or
Mm.
like when we sit and we do like visualizing meditations,
Yeah.
all of that will
Mhm.
come in a variety of ways. They don't experience things on a consistent basis, like they do, and they almost have too many ideas because they're amplifying everyone else's, especially when you go out to a restaurant or a social gathering. It can be really overwhelming. This is a center where you can actually where telepathy happens. So you can be sitting with someone who has defined and an open, and one will say, like, the open will say, I think I really want lasagna tonight. And then the defined will be, I was just thinking that. Like, things like that can kind of happen where you're amplifying, and I don't know, I guess
Oh,
hearing other people's thoughts can happen. It can be really overwhelming if you're out in public and you have an open head center.
yes.
We both don't have that, so we don't know exactly how that experience is. I don't have it either. But over and over, I've just stated what I've learned, and they're like, yes, it's so exhausting. That's another great center to be exhausted and drained from, is all of the thoughts and ideas
Just
from
like that
the
movie,
public.
What Women Want, and
Yeah.
where they he hears all the voice,
Yeah,
all the everybody's conversation, right?
yes. Yes, exactly. But it's confusing because it always doesn't come in their voice. It's your voice because it's your thoughts. So you're thinking all these thoughts, and you're like, gosh, that was just a lot of thoughts I just had. Like, wow, what the heck is going on? Yeah. So if you don't know, then you just think it's you, and you think you're going crazy.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. Very exhausting, very
Uh-huh.
debilitating. So then the triangle that's facing downwards, just below that,
Mhm.
is called the ajna. This is connected to the third eye. So this is where, again, we process these ideas. We use our brains, our left side of our brains, to push all this information and ideas we just got down into something real. Like, how can we manifest this? How can this become reality into an actual, like, 3D construct and something? And then that pushes down into the throat. So if you have that colored in or defined, then you just have a consistent way to figure out stuff. Like, you're always like, everything's figure outable. We got this. It's like consistent. There's always, like, this is the way we do it. It's always this way. It's very consistent. Similar to a scientist.
Mm.
The problem, I would say, the shadow side of having this is that also you have more of a fixed mindset. Like, well,
Mm.
since there's always one way, then that must be like, that's how reality is. Like, one
Mm.
way, my way or the highway kind of a thing. I've experienced with a lot of people dealing with um, narcissists, right? Like, that
Right.
very strong fixed idea typically is always in a defined ajna.
Oh, really?
hmm It's just because it's consistent and you don't
Yeah.
know anything else, and it's within you, and you don't think about
Mhm.
how it could be done any other way because it's just consistently there in your head, right? It's like it's neutral until it becomes
You give it
negative,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. You give it energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you have it open, um, it obviously is very frustrating to interact with someone who is in the negative shadow of the consistent
Right.
way, because you're like, well, there's a variety of ways to live, to be, to do, to find a solution for this. Like, all of the ways that you could solve a math problem, like, that's an open ajna where it's like, yeah, let's do it, this strategy, that strategy, this, there's lots of different strategies, and it's a beautiful thing. Um, so you just experience life, and for you, you don't know any different, right? So, you don't understand why this person is so stubborn and stuck and figuring out or thinking about something this one way. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's like this is where the battle of the minds and
Yeah.
ideas come together. Yeah.
So I'm curious about the two opposing triangles at the top with are they the gates? The
Mhm.
the
The
gates
numbers are
on
gates. Mhm.
the number, yeah, the gates that are all down the left side. Is that considered a closed gate when they're dark?
Yes, you have 64, 47. That's a channel.
Yes.
Called a channel.
Oh, a channel. Okay. So does that correspond to a certain side of the body or does it not?
That's a new question for me. No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Hmm.
There are arrows on certain charts.
Mm-hmm.
Yours doesn't have it. That point left and right. There's 4
Oh.
arrows kind of at the top inside the columns. And those
Oh,
have to
yes.
do more with are you a left brain or right brain, but not the gates and channels.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So then I'm curious about the channel from 64 to 47.
Yeah.
So what is that? Virgo?
This channel, you have 64 over in your Saturn is in gate 64 in your subconscious. And you have 47 over your North Node is in 47 on your conscious. So you've got in your head, you've got conscious energy themes, your North Node, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Virgo. That's that Virgo energy in your brain going, okay, like we were talking about the word control earlier. Like I
Yeah.
was like, that's North Node Virgo, that energy of trying to control all of that, but also to like let go and just be. Like you had kind of have that battle within your mind and
Yeah.
your body. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. And your subconscious, 64 is the gate of, I mean, look again, confusion. It's also
Mm.
Virgo. So both of those are Virgo, and that's how you're very analytical and organized in your thoughts. So that subconscious gate of confusion, that just means there's just a lot. Like there's
Yeah.
too many ideas, and which one is the right one?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, right? And so you're trying to figure out which one's the right one.
I would
And
say
your
that's definitely true. Yeah.
yeah, and your North Node gate in 47 is realization.
Mm.
And you can't come to a realization unless you do what you were just saying you've really been trying to master is wait, just sit
Mm-hmm.
back and be, and then
Yeah.
that aha moment will just pop in your head.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm curious for let's like peer out a little bit for somebody
Yeah.
that's curious about human design and how it can be a tool to help them align with the path that is most fruitful for them. I think when you move into a space in your life where you're struggling to find the right job or find love or find purpose in your place and everything just feels kind of drab and dreary.
Mhm.
um there's a lot of tools out there. Human design is really interesting. What would you tell somebody that might be looking for something like that through human design? Like what would you offer them in terms of maybe even where to start or how to use it to be a launch point, I guess.
Yeah. In the human design chart, I would have them lean into studying their North Node gate energies and their moon gate energies.
Mm.
So the moon brings us emotions, right? It which links into fulfillment, links into like what brings you joy. And I think all of us do well, we create well, and we feel fulfilled, and we feel like we've kind of found our purpose when we are filled up, when we do experience joy. So I think learning like what gate theme, like what is the energy theme around my moon, like what brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And then also your north node. I don't want to go too deep. That's why I paused. I was like, there's something else I
Sure.
could
Yeah.
share, but it's like
No problem.
advanced. But if you want to take a look at your north node, that also is going to give you purpose.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
2. I would say the next one would be your type, because that also does give you an overview of your purpose. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
projector, when you lean into like, I am a wise counsel, you can still create, but what you're doing is creating through the lens of wisdom, through the
Yeah.
lens of like an advisor. I don't know. This is just a really great example, and it's
Yes.
kind of current right now, but Obama is a very wise projector, and
Mm-hmm.
he's whatever, if you like him or not, but like I think he is so wise, and he created this new movie, which is number 1. Like he produces movies now, right? Shows on
Yeah.
and a production company. And so he's a creator, but he's in that production side where he's advising, like, this is the vision, this is what I see, and like
Yeah.
the newest movie is called is it called Leave the World It's called Leave my husband's like, Leave the World Behind. It's called Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts. It's number 1 on Netflix right now. And this is an example of how you can still create as a projector, but essentially it is a movie of like warning signs, right? It's like he's being
Mm.
wise with all of his information and his knowledge and his wisdom, and he's saying he's giving us like this space to think about,
Mm.
right? Because it talks there's a lot of like AI and technology
Yeah.
breakdown that essentially you have to watch it. It's so amazing. So that is what I see, right? And how you can figure out your purpose is really understanding your type, like generator, manifesting generator. You are here to create, yes. And you're also here to do what you love. Like, what do you enjoy? What are you here to create? And the manifesting generator has a very unique creative process. It's not linear. So that's part of your
Right.
purpose, is just accepting who you are and your process. The manifestors of this world are here to find little slivers, little cracks in a page that needs to be opened.
Mm.
And they have that very powerful power to put a wedge in it and start opening it, and then delegate to all of the generators, manifesting generators to work on that, bring out more information about that. And the reflectors, they're here. Your purpose is to literally reflect back to the world what you're observing, what you see, how to be the most wise,
Mm.
person, because
Yeah.
all the other centers are open. So I think really truly that's also part of your finding your purpose.
Mm-hmm. So the next question I want to ask is, I don't know if you still want this chart up because I can take it down if it's helpful for you or not. Is about those people that are looking to identify kind of their soul aligned clients in their business, and using human design to align with the people that you want to serve.
Mhm. That's a really
Does that look
interesting
like?
question. It
Mhm.
looks like that was the other element that I paused and I was like, that's where my thought went. The
Mhm.
profile. What is your profile? I told you what your profile is, but you're probably still like, I don't know what that means. 4-6.
Right,
You
right. I
you
don't.
have to understand the profiles, understand who you're serving, because who you're
Mhm.
serving is in your north node. So here's the advanced part that I paused. Your north
Mhm.
node is 47.1. So if you have your chart, you can grab your chart for free on my website, ravenscott.show. I'll send you your summary.
Yes, thank you.
But I know we probably should have said that. Like, if you want to put your chart
That's
up,
okay. I'll
and
put
then
it. Yep, I'll put it
okay,
all in the show
and then
notes.
like look at your chart while we're talking. So
Oh yeah.
yours is 47.1. The point
Mhm.
1 is the investigator. So there's 6 different lines. We had talked about the I
Okay.
Chings before, right? So
Yes, we did.
there's 6 lines, like on this stack of lines, that is consists of the I Ching. So the line 1 is the first one. Then it goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm trying to say is your people that you're here to serve are people who have line 1 in their profile and line 4 in their profile. The investigators of the world, the people who want to dive deep and understand. Like this 1-4 are people who specifically, if they are 1/4, they are listening to 3 to 4 podcasts a day because they're like, I can't get enough information. I need to learn more. And the 4 is the opportunist, which you also have in yours. So these people are networkers, connectors. They see opportunities in everything, either to make resources or to connect people. Maybe they're really excellent matchmakers. Like they just see opportunities and they're like, oh, here, this goes right here. This fits the puzzle right here. Here you go. And so who you're serving is in your north node. It's in your nodal axis.
Can you do a human design chart? I know you need your birth date and time of birth, but can you do it for a business?
Yes.
You could.
If you know the day you started it, you could even do just noon. That will give you a good enough overview of the majority. You can absolutely do a chart for your business. Yeah.
This is so interesting. Thank you for your knowledge.
You're welcome. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope we kept it as overview as possible.
Yeah, no, it was great. I learned so much. It's definitely piqued my interest to keep learning, which is good. I'm not too overwhelmed, so that's good too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, is there anything that I didn't ask? Okay, this is maybe a big question that I should know about human design, something just like that maybe helped you catalyze something along your journey, like something that we didn't talk about today, something that was like, oh, that's people would want to know about that.
Yes. I mean, the basics, I would say, focus on understanding your strategy and your inner authority. And once you figure those out, then your life's purpose will come within understanding also those aspects, your moon, your north node, your profile, who you're serving, as well as your type. And then the incarnation cross is the last thing we didn't really touch on, but I think it's important. It's a little bit more abstract. That's why it's like really focus in on those 4 first. And then once you've mastered those, then you can like start to study your incarnation cross. So yours was serving, which
service
seems pretty self-explanatory, but
it does.
Pretty much in everything you do, you're always of service to people. So it's like this overarching theme that kind of is the underlying thread in everything you do. And there's always growth in your incarnation cross, and then there's always that kind of enlightened state, like that, like work towards getting to this state, right? And it always says, practice your inner authority and practice your strategy in order to fulfill that life's purpose. So
it sounds like the incarnation cross is kind of like the dark thread that is maybe something that not everybody pays attention to, but can be a big, I don't know, lots of connections in that piece, right?
Yes. And I think some are easier to understand than others. Like mine is dominion, and it's taken me a while to figure out what that means. I'm like, what? I don't want to dominate things. No.
Yeah.
And I resisted it for a while.
But what does it mean for you? I'm curious.
For me, it means, well, number one, like I finally can believe that I can succeed at whatever I put my mind to. And since I have so much Virgo as well, it really does mean like dominate this one topic and organize it like AF. Like just get it as systemized and organized for people as possible. So that's what it means for me.
Like dominion over self is what it sounds like, is what it feels like to me. Yeah. That's fascinating.
And like the knowledge of this, like the human design and how it can really be that healing modality and roadmap for people, and creating a really easy system for them to apply it to their lives.
Do readings? Do you do human design readings? You do.
Yes,
So
I
that's
do.
something you
So you can
offer.
definitely, contact me for a reading. I can send you the link for that and
Great.
get that scheduled. Yeah.
Excellent. So I just want to make sure it's on recording. How can the listeners find you? And then I'll make sure and link it in the show notes.
Yeah, probably the best way is my website. It's ravenscott.show, and I have the links to everything there, my books, readings, podcasts, and all of that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this very enlightening conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. It's always fun
I look
talking
forward
about it.
to I look forward to diving in more. So to wrap up, I just want to end with, what is your unique parting wisdom?
That really would be leaning into your uniqueness. I always end all my podcasts with keep your unique light shining. So I guess that would be my parting wisdom as well. Discover it and then keep it shining.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.